Good morning. Although this is such a different experience than before, I'm so glad to be back in your space again and speaking to you by the way of electronics. It's working for us, so we're going to use it. I'm so glad to be here on Father's Day. I will admit, however, that next to Mother's Day, Father's Day is one of the most challenging holidays we have. Because for some, Father's Day is a wonderful time of great celebration, and for some, Father's Day is a time of pain and anguish and bad memories. And we're going to speak about both of those things. Let's begin with the fact of Father's Day being a wonderful time. Some of you had fathers that were near ideal, and you have such great memories of that time. I want to tell you a little bit about my father because I know that my experience with him had a great deal to do with my being who I am and the things I'll say to you today. So let me share a bit about him. My father was a very good man. He grew up in a hard time back in the early teens of the 19th century. And, not 19th century, 20th century. Yeah. He was born in 1912, that way. He lost his father when he was very, very young. He grew up without any significant male presence in his life, and he dealt with it. And what he learned is to work. And that was his way of showing love, was working. And from the time I was 4 years old, he worked away from home. And from that time until I got married, I saw him maybe 6 weeks out of the year. He would come home for vacation, and if he got laid off or went on strike or whatever, but then he'd go back to work again. So those times when he was home were very precious times and wonderful times. I have a lot of great memories. My father was very good with his hands. He had a 5th grade education, but he could fix anything. And I learned so much watching him and having him teach me. And I have some things to share with you here. I'm wearing a wedding ring, actually, that was made out of a stainless steel bolt. The place where my father worked, he had access to metalworking tools, and he made this ring out of a stainless steel bolt, and I've had it for quite some time. I'm so glad to still have it. He also made me a signet ring, again, out of a bolt, and last year, when my oldest grandson graduated from high school and was getting ready to go away to college, I took that signet ring and had my initials buffed off of it and had his initials put on there so that now he has something from his great-grandfather to carry with him, and I trust that it will continue to be passed down from generation to generation. Another thing my father did was make knives, and this is one of my favorites. It's a hunting knife that he made for me, and it is a treasure for me that I keep close by. Another thing is an old toy. We used to call this a jumping jack. And it goes round and around like this. And when I was a kid, I could sit there for hours doing this. And this is, as far as I know, this is the last one that Daddy made, and I'm hanging on to it. I'm not sure which grandchild's going to get it. I may save it for a great-grandchild along the way, but it is very special and very precious to me, and I honor him in this day for that which happened. Now, again, Daddy worked away from home, so I missed a lot along the way, and he missed a lot too. He never learned how to say, "I love you." My mother assured me how much he loved me and how proud he was of me, but he was never able to look me in the eye and say, "I love you," but I knew it on some level. Now, I've run into a lot of people whose fathers were, again, almost ideal fathers in many different ways. And for those of you who are in that situation, I encourage you to celebrate in this day. Take time to reminisce. Take time to dig up old, favorite, wonderful memories that make you smile. And share them with family members. One of the things I've found is that when we start sharing our stories with each other, somebody will say, "No, that didn't happen on Tuesday. That happened on Thursday. And that wasn't in the summer. It was in the spring." And that sort of thing. So stories get completed when we share them with others. So find those stories about your father and share them with others and find the joy that is in that and enjoy those memories coming back to you all through this time, this holiday, this celebration. Now, there are also those of you whose fathers were not perfect fathers. Well, let me just say it in a hard way. We're not good fathers. There's some of you that experienced being ignored or abandoned, or at worst, some of you experienced abuse of one kind or another, physical or emotional. And that's a hard thing to deal with because we are designed, we are geared up to have the presence of a loving, wise, understanding Father. And when we don't have that experience, it leaves a hole in our psyche. I know that sounds a little bit negative or a little bit pessimistic, but it's a fact that if we don't have that place to refer to, if we don't have that male model for us, both men and women, it leaves a hole there. And many people spend their whole lives suffering because of that. Many people go to get a card for Father's Day and agonize over it because you pick up a card and says, you were always there for me. You always told me you loved me. You gave me exactly what I needed. And you know that's not the truth, so it's really hard to deal with that. And a lot of people never come to a place of being able to address that at all. But I'm going to suggest a couple of things to you to deal with that. The first one is recognizing that that hole in your psyche is there, that you missed something. And the truth is that there's nothing in this world that can make up for that. That hole was there, that place in your heart and your being was there for your Father. And if He was not there, nothing else can really fill it. But that's not the end of the story because there's more to it than that. There's more to us than simply that. We can learn to move from the grief over not having Father present to a point of sadness. And sadness is not terminal. Sadness is not unhealthy. Sadness is a healthy emotion as we understand it. And there's a way to be able to move from that grief over Father not being there to simply being sad. And I'll say some more about that a little bit later. We can help each other in this as well. We can look around us and see those influences that can be beneficial for us. Now, we've talked about human fathers being with us, but there's another dynamic in play here. Some of you have heard of archetypes. These are a psychological term that was popularized by Carl Jung in his depth psychology. But an archetype is an image, it's a symbol, it's an idea that is consistent across all time in the psyche of humankind. It cuts across all cultures, it cuts across all time, all races, all religions, everything. And one of the archetypes that we have is that of father as well as mother. There is an energy, an idea of father and mother that's a part of us. It's a part of the universe. It's bigger than us. It's bigger than matter as such. Now, the archetype of father represents energy. It represents movement. It represents power. It represents presence. That's what we look for in the characteristics of a father, a man. Now, that archetype is present in the consciousness of humankind everywhere. And it's in all of us, that archetype of father that brings understanding and strength and wisdom and courage and movement and energy and light. All of that is present. It's present in women and in men. Now, the father archetype in women is presented, experienced with a different texture than it does in men. Women have those characteristics as well, but they're different than they are when they show up in a man. And a man also has the mother archetype within him, but it shows up differently with a different texture than it does with women. So for those of you who are in that situation, even those who have had a wonderful relationship with Father, there's still a lot to learn here. But those of you who feel you have that hole in your psyche where Father should have been, look around in the world. There is this energy of the masculine archetype that is present all around us. And you can see examples, good, healthy examples of power and strength and courage and judgment and wisdom all around you. And even though those experiences out in the world of the archetype will not take away that sadness that is in your heart for not having Father present there, or Father not being what He needed to be for you. It will not take that away, but it will make a difference. It will allow us to move from a place of grief. I look at grief as like an open wound. You hurt yourself and it's bleeding. That is like grief. And then when the wound begins to heal, and pretty soon it heals over and there's a scar, then that represents to me sadness. It is always there. You can recognize it, but it's not horribly painful like grief is. So when we look around in the world and we see the evidence, the signs of this male archetype out in the world, we can accept those things and experience those things and emulate those things. And it modulates our grief into sadness. Yes, we recognize that there's some discomfort there. Yes, we acknowledge that this is not the way it was ideally supposed to be, but this is the way it is. But we are able, through the movement of spirit within us, to find that support out in the world with the masculine archetype present all around us. So I would encourage you to look around and see the men who truly embody the power and the principle of spirit, that masculine or father archetype, and get to know them, talk to them, see them, allow that influence to be a part of your life as well, and move to a different place around Father's Day and remembering fathers. So as we go through this day, I invite you to give thought to that presence of the masculine image that is all around you, that father archetype that is all around you, and embrace every opportunity you have to bring that into your own heart and to heal those hurts that are there. So I'd say to you, blessed Father's Day.